Hi, Joel. I'm Nikki. Nice to meet you.
Nice
First
to meet
off.
you.
So the first thing we want to kind of talk about is how long have you been an athletic trainer for?
I was trying to do the math the other day for some other reason, but about 14 years, give or take, the part of the year.
Yeah, you lose track. You really lose track of it. So where all have you been an athletic trainer at?
So I did my undergraduate work at University of Wisconsin-Madison, grad school at the University of Kansas. I took a part-time job back at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for a short time, then went to Oklahoma State University to work with track and field there, and then was back at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for 7 or so years, and then most recently work in a sports medicine clinic and within Mayo Clinic Health System.
That's a lot of different kind of places and locations, and that's really cool. I actually know a handful of people that were at Oklahoma State. I wonder if you guys kind of trickled on over. So when did you start your podcast?
It was, I believe, end of 2019, early 2020. The idea started going, and then obviously 2020 happened to everybody as we had extra time to do more of it. But yeah, I think it was right around late 2019, early 2020.
And I'm going to jump backwards actually and ask you a question I forgot to ask. But so why did you become an athletic trainer?
It's not a great story, but in high school, I knew I wanted to do something in kinesiology, and the only reason I knew that word existed is I saw it on the outside of a weight room at the local tech college kind of sports facility. I knew I wanted to go to school at Wisconsin, and I remember hearing about it on my actual freshman orientation the summer prior to starting there. They talked about it, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool. And so decided that's which way we were going to go, and turned out to be a good decision. And so yeah, I never had access to one in high school or never saw one, didn't know what an athletic trainer was, but it just sounded like a unique way to kind of blend sports and medicine together, and so that's the route we went.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common theme. Interesting
Sure.
the way you found out about it, though. I don't know that I've heard that one before, so that's kind of neat.
Right.
So going back a little bit towards your podcast, why did you feel the need to start it? What's the reason behind your podcast?
Yeah, so I had actually started a previous podcast called Clinically Pressed, which was of wide-ranging topics, health, performance, nutrition. It just kind of covered everything with a couple buddies. And then just started looking around a little bit more at athletic training as I was getting more involved in the profession. And at the time, the sports medicine broadcast was really the only AT podcast I could find out there. And Jeremy Jackson does a wonderful job, but a lot of what he would cover was kind of more specific topics and things that could really help you improve your performance as an athletic trainer. So he'd be interviewing doctors and anybody that could bring some knowledge. And so what I wanted to focus on is finding individuals, really anybody in the profession, but especially people that may not ever get to tell their story or talk about a topic that's really important to them within the profession, because they may not try and get in the NATA news or any of these other kind of publications. And so it was really just to highlight people within the profession and the story that they had to tell. And so it could be a specific topic that they're passionate about, or just telling their story on how they got to where they are, which ends up being a resource for somebody else who might have an interest in that same setting or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that's all really relative and really kind of important for other athletic trainers to hear, especially with this size of athletic trainers that are out there now, especially. So going back kind of to you, what sports did you play growing up?
I was a basketball and soccer player. If you've met me, or when you meet me, you'll never believe that I was a soccer player, but I was. Was a big soccer player, we'll just put it that way. But yeah, those were my main sports. I pretended to do track and field when I was early in high school. I was terrible at it. I thought it was what would put me in shape for basketball. So that was really the only reason I did it. But those were kind of the main sports.
Okay. Are you tall? Are you tall then?
I'm like 6'3".
Basketball players should be tall.
Yeah, 6'3", so I was kind of middle range for our school.
Yeah.
One year I started at small forward because we had 2 7-footers on the team.
Sure.
Then the next year I played one game at point guard, and another game I started at center. It was just kind of a weird mix based on the year of who we had.
So I think you said you covered a lot of lacrosse. Is that your favorite sport to cover, or what is your favorite sport to cover?
So that's actually a kind of a misconception that I got to explain to a lot of people. So the University of Wisconsin lacrosse is in the city of La Crosse, Wisconsin. That's just how the UW system actually describes it. So yeah, whenever I say that, they're like, "Oh, you cover lacrosse?" No, I've actually never covered lacrosse, and it was only until my last 2 years there that we actually added a lacrosse team.
Okay.
So it was UW lacrosse. If that isn't an oxymoron when it comes to that. But no, I spent the early part of my career covering track and field. Got into that not really knowing anything about track and field, but really ended up enjoying it. When I went back and worked at, we'll just call it UWL. It's the shorthand, so it keeps it a little cleaner. Took over football there, so then I worked football for about 7 years, but also helped cover wrestling and a bunch of other sports, tennis and golf. So it was kind of a wide range. D3 school, so not the biggest athletic training staff. We were fortunate, a good-sized one, but everybody kind of had to know a little bit about every sport to help each other out. So I got a lot of diverse experiences.
Do you have a favorite out of all of them?
I really enjoyed football, especially at the D3 level. I really enjoyed the D3 level overall because were people, it's athletes that don't have scholarships. They're there because they want to. I also got to have a big role in the strength and conditioning kind of sports performance side. Ended up overseeing that as well. And it was fun to see that you could take people that were maybe not the best athlete or they just hadn't really developed yet and watch them do that over the course of 3 to 4 years and really become a better athlete. And again, there was a good balance because they could only do so much because it was Division III, and that was kind of fun because it was like the kind of the epitome of the student athlete, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a cool way to think of that. So since you've worked with a myriad of different sports, do you feel like there's one in particular that's like the neediest team?
Ooh.
We all have one. Let's hear it.
I think track and field can get that way a little bit, but I think some of it is because they are so in tune with their bodies, especially at the highest level. If something doesn't feel right, they know it and they want to get it addressed. So I don't know if I'd say needy necessarily, but there's definitely, they needed a lot of attention at certain times. And, you didn't really do a lot of like pre-game, like loosen up massage for football players, but for me at track meets, you would do plenty. Yeah,
that's my response too. I agree. They know their bodies, they're in tune with it, and they're going to let you know. They're going to let you know when something's off.
Exactly.
So. I agree. Here is a really important question, if you ask me. Do you willingly squirt water in an athlete's mouth?
No.
Great. Good for you.
Again, another great part of the D3 realm. We were, and they're still there, but I was very fortunate that we had a great AT program at UWL, and it's still really good, but it was fun I got to work with a lot of senior students because I mainly worked before the transition happened to the masters, but I would get senior students that were pretty much done with their clinical rotation and or their education in terms of their clinical skills. They were finishing up still administration, things like that. So they were still learning, but they were pretty much getting ready to go on and graduate school and whatnot. So it was fun to let them have some freedom with the oversight, obviously, but then again, just that at that level, that was all the hands I had. It was me, the one certified athletic trainer with football, and then a bunch of students, and we were able to do well because they were able to get that autonomy. But that is something that we drilled into, especially our football team, is even if you take a water bottle, it doesn't just end up on the ground. It goes back in the rack, or you give it back to them. And again, it was fun to work with that group of players because they were just across the board, just all genuinely appreciative that you were there. They appreciated the support and always had that backing from the coaches too, which was nice. I specifically remember one time the players were not doing something well, and so the coach made them in between practices. This was during camp. All come down and like deep clean all of the AT facilities with us. So we just had a list of things, and it was the best clean the place has ever been because you had 100 football guys. scrubbing down everything. So it was pretty good.
Yeah. You talked about on your podcast that you kind of, one of the reasons you started it was kind of to be a resource for other people to hear, maybe this is how I did this, or this is how I did that, or this is how I became an AT. So who influenced you to become an athletic trainer, or who influences you for the way you practice now?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I can paint back to like one specific person kind of being my quote unquote mentor. I think I've been very fortunate to have really great colleagues and just learn from a lot of people, and have taken a lot of different things from different people, things I like, things I didn't like, kind of put that all together into what made sense for me. Even through the podcast, I've connected up with one AT, Rick Cox. He's out at Tufts University. We've never actually met in person, but we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. We created a athletic training journal together and got it and like published it. And again, we've literally never physically met. It's all been kind of through remote, which obviously the pandemic kind of put things into a feasible thing, that kind of changed it all. But just being able to connect with so many individuals and get their unique perspective, I've tried to kind of take that as almost like a bunch of mentors and just different ideas and put it all into one idea or kind of concept, if you will.
If you've been able to travel with different sport teams, where has been like your favorite location that you're like, oh, I got to go here once, it was really amazing kind of thing?
Yeah, got to do a lot of travel when I worked at Kansas and Oklahoma State with track and field. Kansas, I got to go on a couple really cool trips. It's the only time I've been to New York City. We had to ride the subway to get to the indoor track facility, so that was an experience that, it's just one of those things that's kind of fun to go do. It was also fun to watch pole vaulters transport poles on the subway. Something probably that you only see in New York. And then we also got the opportunity to go to Puerto Rico on a spring break training trip, which was pretty cool, just to have the opportunity to go to Puerto Rico. And then not sport related, but I got to travel overseas to India and a few other places and actually teach how we tape in the U.S. to physical therapists and chiropractors and even physicians over there, which was an incredible experience, just because it's literally the other side of the world, and just seeing how they do things, getting to meet people, some of who I still talk to today. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's even cool to know that you're somebody that's technically beneath the other kind of factors of medicine, and you're teaching them something yourself. So I think that's cool, and I think that shows the value, for sure, of the athletic trainer.
Yeah, it was interesting.
That's really neat. Have you ever been to NATA? And if you have, what's your favorite kind of destination to go to?
I've been to a couple of them. I got to go to Indianapolis this past year. Liked it down there. Been down to St. Louis. That was a lot of fun. And Houston. So those have been the three that I've been able to go to. I honestly haven't got to as many as I would like to, and hopefully get to change that more in the future. Hoping to find myself here in New Orleans coming up here this next year.
Talking kind of about NATA and all that, we've got certification coming up this year. What do you feel is the best bang for your buck location for CEUs?
I mean, NATA is great because you can get all of that knocked out. Honestly, I think the regional meetings and even the state meetings can be of super big value. Just speaking for kind of where we are regionally, GLADA's value per CEU is hard to beat. So if it's even registration's not too bad at all. Our state meeting really upped it in Wisconsin this past year, having more opportunities for CEUs. For a pretty affordable cost there. So I think those are great. There's also so many free options out there. The Advantage podcast does a great job with free CEUs. I haven't utilized them yet, but I know the AT Corner podcast does a ton with CEUs. I've just clicked through. I don't know that it gets a whole lot more affordable than what they put out there for that, short of being free, obviously. But I'm curious because I know NATA has put out a couple sports science continuing ed units that I'm looking forward to checking out. So there's a whole bunch out there for people to find if you just do a little bit of looking.
And my last question is, aside from NATA combined, whatever you pick, who do you think gives out the best swag to their providers, their athletic trainers?
For conference-wise?
Yeah, anything. Like anytime you've gotten any swag, who do you think is like, man, they know us, they get us?
Oh man, I mean, when you walk through the NATA, you always it's always interesting. I feel like I've gotten to a point in my career where I don't just go around and try and collect as much
Yeah.
everything as I possibly can. Like I definitely used to be that person.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like the shirts that they used to give out. I just feel like at this point in my life, I don't necessarily need another T-shirt, but I think Mueller Sports Medicine takes care of ATs and really gets ATs. Obviously Gatorade's always got something going on where they support the profession so much. Get some of the customization there with different things. I wasn't able to swing by a healthy roster this year, so I got to imagine you guys taking care of people. And I know a few colleagues of mine, even within the health system, that got to hang out with you all and had a really great experience. So I got to imagine that you also do your best to take care of athletic trainers, which just kind of in general, like, the profession appreciates it so much. And I know that's something, just keeping a tab on how people seem to feel is people don't always feel like they're appreciated. So when that does happen from companies that, are obviously trying to sell stuff to you, but just that support and connection, it's so vital, and it makes such a big difference with athletic trainers. They feel like they're heard, and, people are willing to take their feedback. It's a huge, huge advantage, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I have to go back, actually, because I did forget another question. I'm really terrible at interviewing. I'm so sorry.
Oh, good.
So if you had to pick like your favorite go-to tape brand, cost aside, what is the GOAT tape brand in your opinion?
I'm biased on it, but I really like Mueller Sports Medicine. Again, you said aside from cost and all that, but that's something working at the D3 school that I was at, we were severely budget restricted. And so anytime we could find a way to maximize a dollar, that's what we did. And so we always went back and looked at that, quality and cost and kind of how it all melds together. And that was always our go-to. And again, bias, they're a Wisconsin company, 2 hours down the road from me, so there's a lot of reasons, but also the products are just I just enjoy everything they did, because again, with what we had to operate with, it allowed us to maximize our budget utilizing a lot of their different stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, that's all I have for you. That's
awesome.
Great.